Hi, a couple of you have just asked with regards to your commentary writing for a quick overview again of sentence types and functions. So this is a very short, really quick video just to help you get your heads back into that idea and revisit it from the start of the course. So, sentence types to begin with. There are 3 main sentence types. As ever, you can take this further and I'll explain an extension at the end, but 3 main sentence types. There are simple sentences that contain one clause. So something like, Mrs. Lillie loves watermelon, I do, is a simple sentence. There is one clause, a subject and a verb, and you can see the example there. Second sentence type, compound sentences. Compound sentences contain 2 clauses which are of equal importance to the sentence. So, for example, Mrs. Lillie loves watermelon and she loves ice cream. Those 2 clauses are of equal importance to the sentence, could stand alone, and are joined by a coordinating conjunction and in the middle there. Complex sentences are your third sentence type. They contain 2 or more clauses where the latter clauses are of lesser importance. Perhaps I shouldn't have said there the later clauses are of less importance because sometimes a subordinate clause comes at the beginning of a sentence. More on that in a second. If you have a look at this example, when Mrs. Lillie eats watermelon, she hopes it's good for her. I could stop there and I could have a complete sentence, and it is made up of that first one clause. I've added, though, a subordinate clause, although she probably eats just as much ice cream, which relies on the main clause to make sense. You could actually switch those round. So you could have a complex sentence that begins with the clause that's subordinate, that begins with the clause of lesser importance. Let me give you the example. Although she probably eats just as much ice cream, when Mrs. Lillie eats watermelon, she hopes that it's good for her. You can still identify the main clause that makes sense on its own. They can switch places within a sentence, though. And a complex sentence, just to remember, contains 2 or more clauses where you can identify a main clause and there might be 1 or more subordinate clauses that rely on that main clause to make sense. Okay. There are other types of sentence that we've discussed within our language lessons. We've talked about minor sentences, and just to recap on that, I know that they're very straightforward. They're actually not sentences at all. It's a grammatically incomplete sentence. So a minor sentence might be any of these examples you can see on the screen. Usually 1-2 words. There is no subject verb. There's no identifiable clause. It is a grammatically incomplete sentence. So just remember minor sentences. If you want to extend a little bit, you might want to go off and have a look at compound complex sentences. Worth a look, but I'm leaving that for now because I want you to have these absolute essentials completely nailed. Okay, the second thing I've been asked about is sentence functions. We've got 4 sentence functions in English. They are declarative sentences, interrogatives, exclamatories, and imperatives. And you'll remember and recognise these sentence functions. Let me just talk you through them. So our sentence functions will start with declaratives. Okay, they give information. Okay, straightforwardly, they tell you something. Elephants are my favourite animal. They are. So declarative sentences give some information. Interrogative sentences do just that. They interrogate, they ask a question. So they act as questions. Keeping on my elephant theme, what makes elephants so interesting? Got an interrogative sentence function here. Imperative sentences, they act as orders or commands, okay? Make something imperative that you do it, okay? So, stop, there's an elephant coming towards us. Stop is an imperative. It's issuing a command or an order, and it's telling someone to do something. So an imperative sentence, orders or commands. Exclamatory sentences, they're sentences that show great power or emotion, and they're generally punctuated by exclamation marks, hopefully just one. Elephants approaching, be careful, is an exclamatory sentence. So there are your 4 sentence functions for English, and it might just be that you are spotting something really interesting in terms of data that you look at for investigations or for creative commentaries, or there's something really interesting within the texts that you're looking at for meanings and representations. Being able to apply this terminology is really, really important in order to be able to be very specific and sophisticated in the way that you write. Always have a look. Is there a real predominance of one of these particular functions or sentence types within a text, and why might that be? Or is there a real concentration of complex sentences followed by a very kind of short minor sentence in a text? Why might it be that lots of complex sentences are followed by a minor sentence? Why might it be that a text contains almost a paragraph full of interrogatives that are then followed by some declarative sentences? There are all sorts of things that are really interesting to look at with this. Finally, if you are just thinking, okay, I hadn't quite got all of that at the start of the course, but I'm kind of getting my head around it now, what can I do to check it's all sunk in? This is what you can do. So test yourself, have a look at this final slide, and pop me an email if you would like to, or your class teacher an email with the sentences labelled with their sentence. You could do sentence type and function, but they're not particularly interesting sentences in terms of sentence type, I will warn you, but sentence functions here, absolutely. And you can then see whether you have absolutely got the hang of this. Hopefully that was helpful. Email us if you've got any questions. Thanks, everyone.